I lost my mom at 10. After 8 years with a cold stepmom, I found out she's my birth mom and the man I call dad isn't my real father. Okay, here we go. Imagine I'm telling you this story over coffee, just letting it all spill out. I swear, sometimes I think my life is a sitcom, a really bad one. I mean, losing my mom when I was only 10, that's already a heavy plot point, right? And then throw in the stepmom, who's basically the antagonist in my personal story arc. It's all just too much. Let me give you some background. Mom passed away when I was 10. Cancer, the classic sob story starter. It still hurts, even 8 years later. It's like a hole in my life that nothing can fill. Dad was a mess, obviously. He's a good guy, just not cut out to be a single parent, especially to a grieving kid. Enter Carol, my stepmom. She came into the picture a couple of years after Mom died. She's nice enough, I guess, civil. We can be in the same room without clawing each other's eyes out, which I guess is progress. But close? Absolutely not. We're about as close as two strangers sharing a bus seat. She's just weird. Like she's trying to compete with my mom. It's the strangest thing. It's not like my mom is even here. It's not like she can come back and defend her title of mom. But Carol acts like it's a competition anyway. She gets all snippy when I talk about mom, or when I wear anything that belonged to her. The worst is my necklace. It's an old thing, just a simple silver chain with a little heart pendant. But it was Mom's. She gave it to me right before she passed. It's the only thing I have that feels like a real, tangible connection to her. So, yeah, I wear it basically every day. It's like a little piece of her is always with me. Carol hates it. She'll make little comments, like, "Are you still wearing that old thing?" Or, "Don't you think it's time you got something a little more modern?" It's like she wants me to take it off, to hide it away, to pretend my mom never existed. And that's what gets me. It's not just about the necklace. It's about the whole thing. It's about her trying to erase my mom, to rewrite my history. And I can't stand it. So, a few nights ago, we were out for dinner. It was the whole crew. Dad, Carol, me, and Carol's parents. Her mom is, well, she's a piece of work. Picture the stereotypical overbearing mother-in-law, and you're pretty close. She's always got something to say, some opinion to offer, some way to make me feel like I'm not good enough. Anyway, we were sitting around the table, making small talk, when Carol's mom noticed my necklace. "Oh, that's a pretty necklace," she said, all sugary sweet. "Where did you get it?" I sighed inwardly. "Here we go." "It was my mom's," I said, trying to keep my tone neutral. "She gave it to me before she passed, I wear it every day." And then Carol just lost it. "Well, technically I'm your mom now," she said, cutting in with this saccharine smile. "I've done more mothering in the last 8 years than she did in 10. I swear, the whole table went silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Even Carol's mom looked shocked, and that woman has seen and said it all. My dad just stared at his plate, like he was trying to become invisible. I don't know what came over me. Maybe it was the years of simmering resentment finally boiling over. Maybe it was the look on Carol's face, that smug, self-satisfied look that just made me want to scream. Maybe it was the fact that she said it in front of her parents, like she was trying to score points with them. Whatever it was, I snapped. I just laughed, this short, sharp, humorless laugh. "If you think being a mom is about trying to erase the actual one," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm, "then yeah, you've been amazing." Her face. Oh man, I wish I had a picture. It was like she'd been slapped. Her mom gasped, a loud, dramatic gasp that could have shattered glass. My dad just kept staring at his plate, like he was hoping the earth would swallow him whole. He cleared his throat. "That wasn't appropriate, you need to apologize." But I didn't. I said I was tired of her acting like my mom never existed, and I wasn't going to play along anymore. I was finished. The rest of the dinner was a disaster. Nobody said a word. Carol just glared at me, her face a mask of fury. Her parents looked like they wanted to crawl under the table and die. My dad just kept sighing and shaking his head. As soon as we got home, Dad laid into me. He said I was disrespectful, that I had humiliated Carol in front of her family, that I needed to apologize. He said I need to be the bigger person, because she's just trying to connect. Connect? Seriously? To me, that didn't feel like connection. That felt like erasure. It felt like she was trying to replace my mom, to take her place in my life, to pretend she was the only one who ever mattered. I refused to apologize. I said I meant every word. I said I was tired of her trying to rewrite my history. Now my stepmom is barely speaking to me. She gives me the silent treatment which, honestly, is kind of a relief. It's a lot more peaceful around here when she's not talking. But my dad, he's been on my case constantly. He keeps telling me I need to apologize, that I'm hurting Carol's feelings, that I'm making things difficult for him. He acts like I'm the one who started this whole thing, like I'm the one who's being unreasonable. I almost gave in, to be honest. I almost apologized, just to shut him up. But then I thought about my mom, about her memory, about how much it means to me to keep her alive in my heart. And I knew I couldn't do it. I couldn't apologize for defending her. But here's the thing, lately, there's been a few things that have been happening that made me question more and more who I was living with. First, there's the little things. My mom's favorite recipes mysteriously disappeared from the recipe box I had stored in the attic. All of them. I'd know my mom's cooking anywhere, and those recipes were all that was left of her cooking, but gone. Then, there are the pictures. I found that a lot of the pictures of mom and dad were no longer on display. If they were, Carol would pop up to replace them. It's like mom never existed in the first place. But that brings me to the biggest problem. My mom's death. It was always a sensitive topic, and I never pressed my dad for details, because he gets sad. But it felt like time to ask a question, so I did. Dad, I said to him, what exactly happened to mom? I want to know the details. I deserve to know. I'm an adult now. I've told you before. She had cancer, and she eventually succumbed to it. It was tragic. End of story. He told me. No, tell me more. I pleaded. When was she diagnosed? What kind of cancer? Did she go to the hospital? My dad suddenly clammed up. He acted very weird. Why do you need to know? It was a long time ago. She got diagnosed a while before you were born, went to the hospital, and got treatment. Before I was born. But mom didn't get sick till I was 10? Did she have it a second time? I pressed on. My dad's face went pale. She didn't get cancer a second time. He told me. But she was sick for years, right? In and out of treatment, right? I asked again. That's when the bombshell dropped. Carol has cancer. Your mom died in a car crash. He told me. My face went white as a ghost. I just blanked out. But if my mom died in a car crash, then there was a huge hole that didn't add up. And it's right when I'm about to confront Carol that something weirder happens. I'm rummaging through one of the cabinets to get some pots and pans when a box falls out. I pick it up and realize that this is my mom's box of belongings. All the mementos and keepsakes that were hidden in here. I open it up and immediately start to tear up. This is one of the last memories I have of my mother. I remember seeing her make this and give it to me. That's when I look down and see something more. There are pictures and letters in there that weren't there before. They were clearly from Carol. I pick them up and read them. And what I read makes me want to vomit. The letters were all addressed to my dad, but they were all about mom. And what they said was absolutely disgusting. Carol had been having an affair with my dad when mom was alive. And she was pregnant? The pictures were of Carol and my dad, laughing and smiling. And in one of them Carol was holding a baby. It couldn't be. Could it? I did the math in my head. Carol came into the picture a couple of years after mom passed away. But if she had a baby when mom was still alive. That's when it hit me. Carol isn't just my stepmom. She's my half-sister. I felt like I was going to pass out. Everything suddenly made sense. The weird vibe, the competition with my mom, the snippy comments, the erasure. It all pointed to one thing. Carol isn't just trying to replace my mom. She's trying to erase her so she can take her place as my dad's number one. But why? What would motivate someone to do something so cruel? That's when I looked down and saw something else in the box. A letter. It was addressed to me. I picked it up and read it. And what I read made my blood run cold. The letter was from my mom. It was written a few weeks before she died. And it revealed a secret that would change everything. My darling, name, the letter began. If you're reading this, it means I'm gone. And there's something I need to tell you before I go. Something that I've been keeping from you for a long time. Your father, he's not your biological father. I blinked. I read the sentence again. And again. It couldn't be true, it just couldn't be. I know this is a lot to take in, the letter continued. But it's the truth. Your father, the man you've known your whole life, isn't your real dad. Your real dad is Carol's father. I gasped. It all made sense now. The weird connection I felt to Carol's parents, the way her mom seemed to favor me over Carol. It was all because they knew the truth. They knew that I was their granddaughter. But why didn't my mom ever tell me? I never told you because I was afraid, the letter explained. I was afraid of what would happen if you found out. I was afraid of losing you. I was afraid of hurting your father. He loves you so much, and I didn't want to take that away from him. But now that I'm gone, I can't keep this secret any longer. You deserve to know the truth. You deserve to know who you really are. I love you more than anything in the world. And I hope that one day, you'll be able to forgive me for keeping this from you. I burst into tears. I couldn't believe it. My whole life had been a lie. The man I thought was my father wasn't my father at all. And my stepmom was actually my half-sister, and her father was my real dad. It was too much to take in. My head was spinning. My heart was breaking. That's when Carol walked into the room. She took one look at my face and knew something was wrong. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. I didn't say anything. I just held up the letter. Carol took it and read it. And as she read, her face drained of all color. "How did you find this?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "It was in the box," I said, my voice trembling. "The box with all my mom's stuff. I found it. It all makes sense now. You were jealous. You were pregnant with me. And then there's Mom. What did you do?" I just couldn't contain my anger. I didn't mean for any of this to happen," she said, her voice cracking. "What do you mean you didn't mean for any of this to happen?" I screamed. "You had an affair with my dad while my mom was alive. You got pregnant with me. And then you came into my life and tried to erase her. How could you do that? Did you kill my mom?" "It wasn't like that," she protested. I started to walk out. "I'm done, I'm gone." "Wait, don't go. Don't you want to hear my side?" she said and grabbed my arm. I twisted it around and kicked her in the stomach. I pushed her as hard as I could and walked out the door. I have no idea where I'm going, what I'm doing, but I can never go back. Now to the next story, story 2. I used to be invisible in the family, always compared to my golden sister, even though I was the one carrying everything. I'm not sure this story is real. Maybe it's just a distorted memory, or a version my mind made up to make things easier to accept. Or maybe it's a story that's been told so many times that even I can no longer tell what's true and what's imagined. Either way, this is my story. And I'm going to tell it the way I remember it. Blood is thicker than water? Bullshit. In my experience, blood is just a sticky, messy substance that stains everything it touches. And family. Family is just a group of people who are legally obligated to make you feel like crap. Especially when you're the failure. My name's Nathan, and for as long as I can remember, I've been disappointed. The underachiever. The one who never quite measured up. And my mom? She made damn sure I never forgot it. See, I have a sister, Mary. And Mary was perfect. Golden Child doesn't even begin to cover it. She was the valedictorian, the Ivy League grad, the corporate climber. Everything she touched turned to gold, or at least that's how it appeared. Mom practically worshipped her. Showered her with praise, bragged about her to anyone who would listen, and constantly used her as a yardstick to measure my own worth. And I always came up short. It wasn't like I was a deadbeat or anything. I had a good job in IT. Steady, reliable, paid the bills. I even managed to squirrel away a decent amount of savings. But that wasn't good enough. It wasn't prestigious enough. It wasn't Mary enough. And the constant comparisons drove me absolutely insane. Why can't you be more like your sister? Mary would never do that. You should take a page out of Mary's book. I swear, I heard those phrases so many times, I started seeing Mary's face every time I closed my eyes. What really ate at me wasn't just the constant put-downs, it was the blatant hypocrisy. I was the one who was always there, the one who quietly picked up the pieces, the one who actually kept the family afloat. See, Mary's high-flying career might have looked impressive on paper, but it didn't exactly translate into cold, hard cash. She was all about appearances, flaunting her expensive clothes, her fancy car, her swanky condo. But beneath the surface, she was a financial train wreck. And who do you think bailed her out every time? Me. I'd been covering Mom's bills for years. Mortgage payments, unexpected expenses, the never-ending parade of emergencies. I did it out of guilt, out of a misplaced sense of obligation. But did I ever get a thank you? Did I ever get a pat on the back? Hell no. I was just the ATM, the reliable source of funds that could always be counted on. And Mary. She was the star, the one who deserved all the praise, even though she was basically living off my hard work. And then came the day I finally snapped. Mom was at it again, comparing me to Mary, telling me how jealous I was of her success. I'd had enough. Years of resentment, years of feeling invisible, years of being treated like crap finally boiled over. "You're just jealous of your sister. She's the successful one, you'll never be like her," she said, her voice dripping with that condescending tone that always made my blood boil. I laughed, a short, sharp, humorless sound. "Good," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "Then she can pay your bills." And just like that, the dam broke. I watched with a perverse sense of satisfaction as my mother's face twisted with anger. But I didn't stop there. I knew I was crossing a line, that I was about to unleash a storm of epic proportions. But I didn't care. I was done. "Why don't you call her right now, Mom?" I said, pushing my chair back from the table. "Ask her to cover the mortgage this month. Since I'm so useless, I guess you won't need my help anymore." My mother's eyes narrowed with suspicion. She knew I was serious. She knew I was about to pull the plug on her comfortable little existence. But her pride wouldn't let her back down. She snatched her phone off the table, her fingers trembling slightly. "Fine," she huffed. "She actually cares about this family, unlike you." She dialed Mary's number, put the phone on speaker, and waited. I could practically feel the tension in the room, thick and heavy. Mary answered on the third ring, her voice all sweetness and light. "Hey Mom, what's up?" "Honey," my mother said, her voice laced with that cloying, manipulative tone she used to get her way. "Nathan has decided he's done helping. I need help covering the mortgage this month." There was a brief pause, a moment of stunned silence. Then, Mary's voice changed. It lost that sugary sweetness, replaced by a sharp, clipped tone that I knew all too well. "Mom, I already told you," she said, her voice laced with thinly veiled irritation. "I can't right now. I just put a down payment on the new condo. You know how it is." "But honey," my mother pleaded, her voice cracking slightly. "I don't know what to do. The mortgage is due, and Mom, I can't," Mary said, her voice firm, bordering on dismissive. "I just don't have the money. You'll figure it out." And that was it. Just like that, the golden child had crumbled. The facade of perfection had shattered, revealing the hollow shell beneath. My mother's face was a study in disbelief. She stared at the phone, her mouth agape, like she couldn't comprehend what she was hearing. The realization that her precious Mary couldn't, or wouldn't help her was a blow she hadn't seen coming. I decided to twist the knife a little further. "Wait a minute," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "I thought Mary was the successful one. Shouldn't this be easy for you? What happened to all that big corporate money?" Mary's sharp intake of breath was almost audible over the speakerphone. "That's none of your business, Nathan," she snapped, all pretense of civility gone. "Oh, I think it is," I retorted. "Especially since I'm the one who's been bailing you both out for years." The silence that followed was deafening. I could feel my mother's eyes boring into me, a mixture of anger and dawning horror on her face. "You don't understand," Mary finally said, her voice tight and strained. "My expenses are insane. The condo, the car payments, the credit cards, it all adds up. So, the lavish life ain't so lavish after all, huh?" I said, leaning back in my chair and relishing the moment. The rest of the conversation was a blur. More excuses from Mary, more pleading from my mother, and more snide remarks from me. Finally, Mary hung up, leaving my mother staring at her phone in stunned silence. "Well," I said, standing up and grabbing my jacket. "Looks like you bet on the wrong horse, Mom." I turned to leave, but my mother grabbed my arm, her grip surprisingly strong. "You can't just walk away from this, Nathan," she said, her voice shaking. I need your help." I looked down at her hand on my arm, then back up at her face. For the first time, I saw a flicker of something genuine in her eyes. Not love, not affection, but fear. "I thought Mary was handling it," I said, my voice cold and indifferent. "She will," she whispered. "She just needs time." It was the same empty promise she'd been making me for years. I raised an eyebrow. "And in the meantime? What happens to you?" Her hand tightened on my arm, her knuckles white. "You're my son, Nathan," she said, her voice pleading. "You can't let me lose everything." It was then I saw all the years of manipulation, all the years she forced me to follow her strings. It wasn't going to work. I pried her fingers off my arm. "You made your choice, Mom," I said, my voice as hard as stone. "Now you get to live with it." And with that, I walked out the door. I didn't look back. As I drove away, I felt a strange mix of emotions swirling inside me. Relief, anger, sadness, and something else. Something dark and unfamiliar. Was I enjoying this a little too much? Over the next few weeks, I did my best to ignore the chaos that was unfolding back home. My mother bombarded me with calls and texts, ranging from desperate pleas to angry accusations. Mary went radio silent, probably too busy trying to keep her own life from imploding to worry about her mom. But I didn't waver. I knew I was doing the right thing. I had spent too long sacrificing my own happiness for the sake of a family that didn't appreciate me. It was time to put myself first. And then came the call that changed everything. It was Alexis, a family friend. She is one of the few friends my mom kept up with. "Nathan," she said, her voice grave. "I think you need to know what's happening with your mother." I sighed. "What now? Did she finally get evicted?" "It's worse than that, Nathan," Alexis said. "She's desperate. She's been calling everyone, begging for money. She's even been trying to sell off some of the family heirlooms." The news hit me harder than I expected. This was spiraling further than I wanted. So Alexis continued and then said, "Mary, that's another story." "Alexis, please just get to the point," I replied, my voice tight with growing anxiety. "I heard from a little birdie that Mary has loan sharks on her tail. Word of advice? Don't go near the action. You don't want to get involved. Goodbye." The phone call then hung up. The news stopped me in my tracks. I started piecing together all the things Alexis and Mom have been saying over the years. The fact that Mary was so tight on money, and how much she flaunted being high class. I decided to leave things as is. I was going to hide. I tried to brush it off, to tell myself it wasn't my problem. But I couldn't shake the feeling that things were spiraling out of control. I kept thinking about my mother, alone and desperate, and Mary who had done things that were wrong. She has put herself in great danger. My heart grew heavier, and there was nothing I could do. I decided to protect myself. I started diverting large sums of money into offshore accounts, making sure that no one, especially Mary, would be able to find them. Since they were out to use me as an ATM, I wasn't going to be used. That way I was free to do whatever I wanted. The guilt at the selfishness barely pricked my conscience. It was survival. A week later, I received a call from Alexis, again concerned. I picked it up immediately this time. "Nathan, I hate to be the one to call, but it's important." My stomach dropped. "Please tell me Mom isn't going to do something stupid," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "It's about Mary. No one can get a hold of her. She missed dinner with her co-workers who called to check on her since she hasn't been seen at work in the past week." I paused. In the past week, I've seen no calls or texts. It's odd, I thought, but at the same time, it wasn't. I was one of the few people Mom and Mary contacted. What did I know? "Is this about loan sharks?" I responded, dread creeping into my voice. "I don't know, but this seems to spell disaster," Alexis stated, her voice shaking. "All right, I'll head to her condo and check things out," I replied, hesitant to get involved. Each step closer felt like stepping into quicksand, knowing it could drag me under too. Part of me screamed at me to stay away, that I had done enough. But the other part, the part that still clung to some twisted sense of family, wouldn't let me turn away. As I drove to Mary's condo, I couldn't help but feel a sense of dread. The sky had turned gray, and the wind was picking up, as if foreshadowing what was to come. I thought about turning around, to stay away, but I was so close, and part of me needed to know what had happened. The guilt weighed heavily on me. I pulled into the parking lot of Mary's condo, and walked up to the door. As I went to knock on the door, it swung open, revealing a scene that would forever be etched in my nightmares. The air was thick with a strong, metallic scent. The living room furniture had been flipped and shattered. Broken pieces of porcelain were spread across the floor. I followed the red stains across the room and toward the bedroom. As I got to the door, I peeked in and immediately ran to a trash can to puke. What I saw is something I will never forget. Mary was spread across the bed with slashes all across her chest. Her condo had been completely ransacked and robbed. I was the first to the scene. She lay like a discarded doll, her perfect image shattered, her life brutally extinguished. I bolted out of the condo, gasping for air. I stumbled to a nearby trash can and emptied my stomach, the bile burning my throat. When I could finally stand, I pulled out my phone and dialed 911, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the device. The authorities swarmed the scene. The police, the paramedics, the crime scene investigators, a cacophony of sirens and flashing lights that only amplified the horror of what I had just witnessed. I was questioned for hours, grilled about my relationship with Mary, my knowledge of her debts, her associations. It became clear that I was one of the last people Mary had contacted. The detectives saw me as a suspect. Finally, exhausted and traumatized, I was released. They warned me not to leave town, that I was still a person of interest. I didn't care. I just wanted to go home, to scrub the images from my mind, to forget everything that had happened. But I knew that was impossible. I was forever tainted. As I headed back to my car, a chilling realization began to creep into my mind. This wasn't just about the money. It was about something more. Something darker. Something that reached back into our twisted family history, our poisonous dynamic. Had my refusal to help set this chain of events in motion? Was I responsible for Mary's death? It was 3 a.m. when I received a call from an unknown number. I hesitated, but the same sense of dread that had plagued me all day compelled me to pick up. The voice on the other end was distorted, almost robotic. It sent shivers down my spine. "Thank you for doing what you did. You have set your mom free. I hope you live a long life." Then the call immediately ended. My blood ran cold. Those words? They sounded like a threat. A promise. A confession. I checked my bank account, and saw that all of my savings and wealth had been transferred to an offshore account. An account of my own. What is going on? What have I done? The dread was creeping in. Was I next? I received a call in the morning to attend Mary's funeral, and I attended with a heavy heart. The call happened to be from Mom. I picked my mom up, and she's a husk of what she once was. There was no emotion. No feeling. We sat in the pews without expression. The words and prayers of the speakers did nothing to ease the atmosphere. I was getting stares and glares from all members of the family. I wasn't the golden child, and never will be. We drove home in silence, and it was a silence that I was going to have to carry with me for the rest of my life. As the days turned into weeks, I felt so empty. Although my life was financially stable and free from my family, I have no one to turn to. I have blood on my hands, whether direct or not. I receive a call from the police, and they say that they are closing the case for Mary, as they suspect it to be someone out of state. They give me their condolences and then hang up. I can never tell Mom about that. She's too fragile, and it may kill her. A year has passed. I received a call, and it's from an unknown number. I picked up, and I heard my mom tell me these words. "You're free. Finally, both of us are free." It was the only choice for me to take. "Please don't find me." I tried to respond with the words, "What do you mean?" But the call immediately ended. I tried calling again, but the line went dead. It was then I realized that those are the words of someone who was on the brink. Of someone who had nothing left. The finality of these words was all but telling. I contacted Alexis about my mom, and we searched all day and all night looking for her. We posted photos. We called the authorities. And nothing. 3 days later, I received a call from the local police. A body has been found in the reservoir. I had to go to identify the body, and it was my mother. She was gone. She had weighed herself and jumped in the reservoir. I'm left with nothing. I didn't want this. I wanted to be free of them, but not for them to perish. I wanted to escape, not destroy. I sold everything and decided to move. I leave this place behind with the horrifying memories that have occurred. The offshore account? I left it untouched. It was tainted money, blood money, and I wanted nothing to do with it. I gave the details to Alexis. She could donate it, burn it, do whatever she wanted with it. I just wanted it gone.
Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.